Speak, prosody rate equals -5%. Part 1. The Galactic Academy and the peculiar human band, the Grand Galactic Academy of Xylos Prime, was a marvel of pan-species cooperation, a shimmering spire of crystalline architecture where the brightest young minds from 1,000 worlds converged. Here, the scions of the technologically advanced Xylosians, the stoic and ancient Karadar, the multi-limbed, hyperlogical synths, and a myriad of other sentient species learned the intricate dance of astrophysics, xenolinguistics, and intergalactic diplomacy. Among them, a small, often bewildered contingent of human students struggled to keep pace, their organic brains and emotional volatility a constant source of amusement for their more Oppos. Evolved in Oppos. Peir's point one particular human regulation, however, was a perpetual punchline. The and quote, humanity's specific prescription on unsupervised grav plate manipulation in non-designated zones. End quote. Or, as the students universally called it, end quote, the human ban on hoverboards, end quote, the Academy's grav. Plates embedded in every floor, wall, and ceiling were standard, ubiquitous technology. They allowed for effortless movement, cargo transport, and even recreational zero-G sports. Every species, from the heaviest Karadar to the most delicate Xylosian, used them with innate grace. Yet, humans, uniquely, were forbidden from operating them without direct supervision and only within designated, padded training areas. The official reason cited in quote, unforeseen kinetic discharge potential in quote, and in quote, unacceptable risk of structural compromise, end quote. The alien students found this hilarious. End quote. They can build hyperdrives, but they can't in Oppos. Ride a grav plate, end quote. Scoffed a Xylosian named Zephyr, his luminous tendrils rippling with mirth. End quote. It in Oppos. It's like forbidding a species from tying their own shoes. End quote. A synth drone, Unit 734, projected a holographic image of a human flailing wildly on a grav plate, followed by a comical explosion. The entire cafeteria erupted in laughter. The human students, led by a perpetually exasperated young woman named Cadet Anya Sharma, simply gritted their teeth. They knew the ban was ridiculous. They saw their peers effortlessly gliding through the Academy's vast halls, while they were relegated to walking, or worse, being ferried by automated transport. It was a constant, irritating reminder of their perceived and Oppos, inferiority and Oppos. Anya, a former competitive urban athlete from Earth, felt the itch to jump on a grav plate every single day. She knew, deep down, that the Academy and Oppos' assessment was fundamentally flawed. They didn't and Oppos understand human and Oppos, kinetic discharge potential and Oppos, at all. They thought it was clumsy. They had no idea it was a weapon. Part 2. The prank and the pact of mockery reached its peak during the annual Interspecies Engineering Challenge. The final task: navigate a complex, multi-level obstacle course using grav plates, while transporting delicate, simulated xenobotanical samples. The human team, predictably, was disqualified from participating in the grav plate portion, relegated to a purely theoretical design role. End quote. It's an insult. End quote. Anya fumed her teammate, a lanky, perpetually sarcastic human named Jax and Oppos. Jitter and Oppos. Miller. End quote. They and Oppos. Basically telling us we and Oppos. Too clumsy to even try. End quote. Jax, who had a knack for finding loopholes in any system, grinned. End quote. Clumsy maybe, but predictable? Never. End quote. He pulled up a schematic of the Academy and Oppos' grav plate system. End quote. The ban only applies to unsupervised operation. It doesn't in Oppos say anything about unauthorized modifications. End quote. A mischievous glint entered Anya and Oppos' eyes. End quote. What are you thinking, Jitter? End quote. End quote. A little protest. End quote. He whispered. End quote. A demonstration of human and Oppos' kinetic discharge potential in Oppos that they won in Oppos, soon forget. We just need to in Oppos, borrow in Oppos, a few grav plates, make a few in Oppos, adjustments in Oppos, and find the perfect moment, End quote. Their target. The Grand Atrium, a massive multi-story open space where the Academy and Oppo's most prestigious events were held. It was currently being prepared for the graduation ceremony, meaning the grav plates were set to a low, stable setting for easy access by dignitaries. Perfect. Over the next few cycles, Anya, Jax, and a small, trusted group of human cadets worked in secret. They and Oppo's acquired in Oppo's several standard Academy grav plates, smuggling them into a disused maintenance bay. Jax, with his uncanny ability to reverse engineer anything, began tinkering. He bypassed the safety protocols, recalibrated the inertial dampeners, and, most crucially, installed Oppo's boost and Oppo's function that would allow for explosive, short bursts of acceleration. Anya, meanwhile, practiced in a deserted cargo bay, her movements fluid and precise, despite the jury-rigged controls. She was a natural, her body instinctively understanding the physics of controlled chaos. Their alien classmates, oblivious, continued their jokes. And quote, heard the humans are having trouble with air and Oppo's, walking into Oppo's lessons, and quote, Akar there grunted, his chitinous plates vibrating with amusement. And quote, perhaps we should offer them wheels. And quote, the humans simply smiled. They had a pact. No talking, just acting. They would show the galaxy why the ban existed. Not because humans were clumsy, but because they were terrifyingly, gloriously unpredictable. The stage was set for the most peculiar demonstration of human ingenuity the Academy had ever witnessed. Part 3. The Gala, and the glitch the annual Academy Gala was in full swing. The Grand Atrium shimmered with 1,000 alien lights, filled with dignitaries, faculty, and students from across the galaxy. Elegant Xylosians glided gracefully on low-set grav plates, their robes flowing. Their officers exchanged solemn greetings, their heavy forms barely disturbing the air as they drifted. Since projected intricate holographic displays, their internal processors humming with polite conversation. Commander Forlag, a stern, multi-eyed Kardar and head of Academy security, surveyed the scene with satisfaction. His sensors detected no anomalies, no unauthorized energy signatures. The humans, as expected, were confined to the ground level, mingling politely, their grav plate ban a distant, amusing memory. Suddenly, a faint, high-pitched whine echoed through the atrium. It was almost imperceptible at first, easily mistaken for a minor system glitch. Then, the grav plates beneath the feet of several high-ranking Xylosian diplomats flickered. Their elegant glides became jerky, their movements momentarily uncontrolled. A few gasped, regaining their balance with effort. Commander Forlag's eyes narrowed. End quote. Report, and quote. He barked into his comms. End quote. Minor energy fluctuations detected. Commander, end quote. A security drone responded. End quote. Localized, intermittent. Source undetermined. Possibly a resonance cascade from the lower levels. End quote. But it wasn't an Oppo's, a resonance cascade. It was Jax Miller, tucked away in a ventilation shaft above the atrium, his fingers dancing across a jury-rigged control panel. He was injecting microbursts of chaotic energy into the atrium's grav plate grid, just enough to cause momentary disruptions, to sow a tiny seed of unease. He was setting the stage. Below, Anya Sharma, dressed in a standard Academy uniform, moved subtly through the crowd. In her backpack, carefully concealed, were the modified grav plates. Her heart pounded, a primal human rhythm against the hum of alien technology. This wasn't just about proving a point. It was about reclaiming a sliver of human dignity. A Xylosian student, Zephyr, still chuckling about the human ban, glided past Anya. End quote. Still walking, human, end quote. He chirped, his tendrils waving mockingly. End quote. Perhaps we should install handrails for you. End quote. Anya just smiled, a tight, enigmatic smile that didn't in Oppo's. Reach her eyes. End quote. Oh, we in Oppo's. We about to show you something that in Oppo's. LL make you wish you had handrails. Zephyr. End quote. Commander Forlag, meanwhile, was growing increasingly agitated. The and oppos, glitches and oppos, were becoming more frequent, more pronounced. A synth drone, attempting to deliver a platter of refreshments, suddenly spun wildly, sending snacks scattering across the floor. Dignitaries were stumbling, their dignified composure cracking. This was no minor glitch. This was a deliberate, insidious attack on the Academy and oppos' technological integrity. But by whom? And how? He scanned the crowd, his multispectral vision searching for any sign of a culprit. He completely overlooked the small, unassuming human, whose eyes held a dangerous, exhilarating spark. The stage was set for chaos. Part 4. The unveiling of human and oppos. Clumsiness and oppos. The and oppos, glitches and oppos, escalated. The grav plates in the grand atrium began to surge and dip, causing even the most experienced alien users to stumble. Polite murmurs turned into exasperated grunts. Commander Forlag's security drones were now frantically trying to stabilize the system, their efforts futile against Jax and oppos' unpredictable interference. Then, the main lights in the atrium flickered, plunging the vast space into a momentary, unsettling dimness. When they flared back on, a gasp rippled through the crowd. Hovering precariously in the center of the atrium, several meters above the ground, were Anya Sharma and her small team of human cadets. They were and oppos, gliding gracefully. They were jerking, twitching, their bodies contorting in what looked like a desperate struggle for balance on wildly unstable grav plates. The alien students, initially shocked, quickly broke into renewed peals of laughter. End quote. Look at them. End quote. Zephyr shrieked, pointing. End quote. They can end oppos, even hold still. End quote. Commander Forlag, however, felt a prickle of unease. This wasn't an oppos, clumsy. This was intentional. The humans were defying the ban, openly, brazenly. But why? And how are they even staying aloft on such unstable platforms? What the aliens perceived as flailing was, in fact, an intricate, highly controlled dance. Jax had deliberately programmed the grav plates to be unstable, to mimic the chaotic energy fluctuations he was injecting into the system. And Anya and her team, honed by years of human sports that demanded split-second reactions and a mastery of unpredictable forces, were riding that chaos. They weren't and oppos, fighting the instability. They were flowing with it, using their bodies to absorb and redirect the erratic movements. End quote. They think we and oppos, re-struggling, end quote. Anya whispered in her comms, a wild grin on her face. End quote. Let oppos. Show them one oppos, struggling in oppos. Looks like when you and oppos, re-human. End quote. With a sudden, synchronized burst, the human cadets activated the end oppos. Boost in oppos, function Jax had installed. The grav plates, already unstable, surged with raw, uncontrolled power. The humans didn't in oppos. Just move, they launched. They shot across the atrium, not in smooth arcs, but in dizzying, unpredictable zigzags ricocheting off walls, narrowly missing chandeliers, and sending alien dignitaries scattering in panic. End quote. They and oppos. Out of control. End quote. A Xylosian shrieked, diving for cover as Jax, on his own boosted grav plate, zipped past, leaving a trail of dislodged decorative flora in his wake. Commander Forlag watched, stunned. This wasn't an oppos, clumsiness. This was a terrifying, weaponized form of it. The humans weren't and oppos, just riding the grav plates. They were abusing them, pushing them beyond their design parameters, turning a tool of elegant transport into a chaotic, destructive projectile. The and oppos, unforeseen kinetic discharge potential and oppos, cited in the ban, was now on full, terrifying display. And the laughter on the alien faces had died, replaced by wide-eyed horror. The show had truly begun. Part 5. The Grand Atrium becomes a human playground. The Grand Atrium, once a symbol of galactic order, had become a chaotic blur of human motion. Anya and her team, fueled by adrenaline and years of pent-up frustration, were a whirlwind of unpredictable trajectories. They weren't and oppos. T just moving, they were performing. They executed impossible turns, defied apparent physics with sudden stops and starts, and used the atrium and oppos as architectural elements as their personal obstacle course. Anya, in particular, was a force of nature. She launched herself off a decorative archway, spun in midair, and landed perfectly on a grav plate embedded in the ceiling, then dropped like a stone, narrowly avoiding a terrified Kiar, the general. Her movements were fluid, precise, and utterly illogical to the alien observers. They were designed for efficiency and predictability. Human movement, however, was designed for adaptation and survival in a chaotic world. Commander Forlag's security drones, finally reacting, attempted to intercept. But their pre-programmed pursuit algorithms, designed for logical, predictable targets, were useless. The humans didn't and oppos. T follow straight lines. They didn't and oppos. T maintained constant speeds. They dodged, weaved, and reversed direction with a terrifying, almost malicious glee. One moment, Jax would be heading directly toward the synth. The next, he and oppos execute a sudden, impossible pivot, leaving the synth's optical sensors spinning in confusion. End quote. They and oppos. They and oppos. Not following any discernible pattern. End quote. A security drone reported, its voice modulator expressing digital exasperation. End quote. Their movements are entirely random. End quote. End quote. Random, my multi-eyed friend. End quote. Anya muttered in her comms as she zipped past a terrified Xylosian. End quote. Is just another word for an oppos. Unpredictable and oppos. End quote. The humans were not just riding the grav plates. They were mastering the chaos. They were using their bodies, their instincts, and their uniquely human ability to thrive in disorder. They were performing tricks that would have been impossible for any other species, precisely because they were so and oppos, clumsy and oppos, on the grav plates. Their and oppos, clumsiness and oppos, was a superpower, allowing them to absorb and manipulate kinetic energy in ways the aliens couldn't and oppos comprehend. The alien students, who had mocked the band, now watched in stunned silence. Their laughter had evaporated, replaced by a mixture of awe and genuine fear. They saw the sheer, unadulterated danger of human and oppos, clumsiness and oppos. They saw the raw, untamed power that the Academy had tried to contain. Commander Forlag finally understood. The band wasn't and oppos. Because humans were incapable. It was because they were too capable, too unpredictable, too human. The and oppos, unforeseen kinetic discharge potential and oppos, wasn't and oppos. A flaw. It was an inherent, terrifying trait. And now, it was unleashed in the heart of the Grand Academy. The gala had transformed into a live demonstration of why humanity, for all its perceived flaws, was a species to be reckoned with. And the footage, the footage was going to be legendary. Part 6. The footage goes viral, galactically. The chaos in the Grand Atrium lasted only a few minutes before Commander Forlag managed to initiate a full gravplate system shutdown, forcing the human cadets to descend. They landed with a flourish, bowing dramatically to the stunned, silent crowd. They were immediately apprehended, of course, but their mission was accomplished. The footage, however, had already escaped. Every dignitary, every faculty member, every student with a personal comms device had recorded the event. Within cycles, the holographic recordings of Anya and her team and oppos, and oppos, performance and oppos, had gone galactic. They were shared, analyzed, and reanalyzed across 1,000 worlds. The initial reaction was disbelief. End quote. Is this a hoax? End quote. A Xylosian news anchor queried, displaying a loop of Anya executing a mid-air somersault on a wildly bucking grav plate. End quote. Can these and oppos, humans and oppos, truly manipulate kinetic forces with such abandon? End quote. The synths, ever logical, ran simulations. Their models, based on known physics and grav plate parameters, consistently showed and oppos, catastrophic failure and oppos, for any species attempting such maneuvers. Yet, the footage clearly showed humans doing it, not just surviving but thriving in the chaos. Their algorithms began to stutter. The KRthar, a warrior race, were perhaps the most unnerved. They understood combat, strategy, and brute force. But this was something else. This was a species that turned a simple transport device into a weapon of unpredictable motion, a species that embraced chaos as a tactical advantage. End quote. They are unsettling, end quote. A KR, a general grunted to his subordinates. End quote. Their unpredictability is a weakness, but also a strength we do not comprehend. End quote. The footage became a sensation. It was dissected in physics classes, debated in diplomatic forums, and, most importantly, watched repeatedly by alien students who had once mocked the human band. They saw Anya and Apos, S wild grin as she defied gravity, Jax and Apos, S reckless abandon as he weaved through the crowd, and the sheer, unadulterated joy on the faces of the human cadets as they turned the Academy's pristine atrium into their personal playground. The laughter had stopped. The mockery had ceased. In its place was a grudging respect, tinged with a healthy dose of fear. The Apos, humanity's specific prescription on unsupervised grav plate manipulation and Apos, was no longer a joke. It was a chilling testament to a uniquely human capability. The galactic community was finally beginning to understand why the ban existed. It was an Apos, to protect the humans from the grav plates. It was to protect the galaxy from the humans on the grav plates. And the footage, oh, the glorious, terrifying footage, was the proof. Part 7. The Academy and Apos. Reassessment. The aftermath of the Grand Galactic Academy was, to put it mildly, tumultuous. Commander Forlag, initially furious, found himself facing an unprecedented wave of inquiries from galactic powers. The incident, dubbed in quote, the Atrium Anomaly, end quote, had forced a fundamental reassessment of human capabilities. Anya Sharma and her team were, predictably, disciplined. They received a stern reprimand, community service, and a temporary suspension from all Academy privileges. But behind closed doors, Commander Forlag, a being of strict adherence to rules, found himself grappling with a profound shift in perspective. He summoned Jax Miller to his office, a sterile chamber devoid of any personal touches. End quote. Cadet Miller, end quote. Forlag rumbled, his multi-eyes fixed on the human. End quote. Your modifications to the grav plates were ingenious and highly illegal, end quote. Jax just shrugged. End quote. Necessity is the mother of invention, Commander, and boredom is a close second. End quote. End quote. Your species, end quote. Forlag continued, ignoring the sarcasm, end quote, was deemed an Apos, unsuited an Apos, for unsupervised grav plate operation due to a perceived lack of fine motor control and an inability to adapt to stable, predictable energy fields. Yet, your team demonstrated a mastery of unstable fields that defies all known xenophysiological models. End quote. End quote. We call it an Apos, winging it an Apos, Commander, end quote. Jax offered. End quote. Or end Apos, making it work in Apos. Humans are pretty good at that, especially when someone tells us we can end Apos. End quote. Forlag paused, processing this. End quote. The end Apos, kinetic discharge potential in Apos, was not a flaw, but an inherent, almost weaponized, ability to absorb and redirect chaotic energy. Your species thrives in disorder. End quote. End quote. Pretty much, end quote. Jax confirmed, a flicker of pride in his eyes. The Academy's faculty, particularly the xenophysicists, were in an uproar. Their models were broken. Their assumptions about human and Apos, clumsiness and Apos, were shattered. They began to study the footage with a new intensity, trying to reverse engineer the human and Apos, methodology and Apos. They found no complex algorithms, no hidden technology, just raw, instinctual adaptation. The alien students, meanwhile, were no longer mocking. They were fascinated. They watched the footage, not for laughs, but for understanding. They saw the sheer, audacious confidence of the humans, their willingness to embrace risk, and their terrifying ability to turn a perceived weakness into an undeniable strength. The ban, once a joke, was now a source of morbid curiosity. They wanted to know more about this strange, unpredictable species. The Grand Galactic Academy, for the first time in centuries, was forced to admit that its understanding of a species was fundamentally flawed. And it was all thanks to a few humans and some very modified hoverboards. Part 8. The unexpected consequences, the atrium anomaly, had far-reaching, unexpected consequences. The footage, initially a source of entertainment, quickly became a subject of serious geopolitical discussion. Empires that had previously dismissed humanity as a minor, unremarkable species suddenly paid attention. The Xylosian Senate, known for its meticulous data analysis, commissioned a full report on human endopos, kinetic adaptability endopos. Their conclusion: while humans lack the raw physical strength of the Kardar or the processing power of the synths, their ability to thrive in chaotic environments and turn unexpected variables into advantages made them a unique and potentially dangerous factor in any conflict. End quote. Their endopos, clumsiness and opos, end quote. One Xylosian senator gravely stated, end quote, is a form of controlled chaos, a weapon we do not understand. End quote. The Kardar military, always pragmatic, began to reevaluate their combat simulations. Their models, which had predicted easy victories against human ground forces, now had to account for a species that could apparently weaponize its own body movements and unpredictability. They imagined human soldiers not just fighting, but dancing through battlefields, turning explosions into launch pads and debris into cover. It was a terrifying thought. Even the synths, whose entire existence was based on logic, found themselves grappling with the illogical. Their attempts to replicate the human gravplate maneuvers in controlled simulations consistently ended in virtual crashes. They couldn't endopos, compute the human element of endopos, instinct endopos, or endopos, gut feeling endopos. The most immediate consequence, however, was at the academy itself. The human students, once ostracized, now found themselves the subject of intense, if somewhat awkward, curiosity. Alien students approached them, not with jokes, but with questions. End quote. How did you do that? End quote. End quote. Can you teach me to an opos? Wing an opos? End quote. The human ban on grav plates remained, but its meaning had fundamentally shifted. It was no longer a sign of human inadequacy. It was a testament to their unique, terrifying potential. Anya and Jax, now minor celebrities, found themselves in a strange new role, unofficial ambassadors of human unpredictability. They still served their community service, but now, alien students would surreptitiously watch them, trying to decipher the secrets of their endopos, clumsiness and opos. The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson. Never judge a book by its cover, especially if that cover is a human struggling to walk in a straight line. Because sometimes the most endopos, clumsy endopos, species is the one that can turn the galaxy on its head. Part 9. The new curriculum, the atrium anomaly, ultimately led to a radical shift in the Grand Galactic Academy's curriculum. The old xenophysiology texts, which had categorized humans as endopos, kinetically limited endopos, were quietly revised. New courses such as applied chaos theory in organic systems and unpredictable kinematics, a human case study, began to appear on the syllabus. Commander Forlag, now a reluctant admirer of human audacity, oversaw the changes. He even had a private, unlisted grav plate installed in his office, where he would occasionally, in secret, try to mimic Anya's more basic maneuvers, usually ending in a comical, multi-limbed tangle. He never succeeded, but the attempt itself was a testament to the profound impact the humans had made. The most significant change was the establishment of a new, highly restricted training program. Adaptive kinetic response for extreme environments. It was in essence a program designed to study and, if possible, replicate human endopos, clumsiness, and oppos. Only a select few alien students, those deemed most adaptable and least bound by rigid logic, were admitted. They were taught to embrace unpredictability, to react instinctively, and to find opportunity in chaos. It was a slow, painful process, often resulting in bruised appendages and shattered expectations, but the Academy recognized its necessity. The human students, meanwhile, were no longer confined to designated training zones. The ban remained on paper, a legal formality, but in practice, they were given a wider berth. Their movements, once a source of amusement, were now observed with a mixture of awe and caution. They were no longer the clumsy ones. They were the masters of a terrifying, beautiful form of chaos. Anya Sharma, having completed her disciplinary service, found herself approached by the Academy's Xenophysics department. They offered her a position as A and Oppos, consultant in Oppos, for the new Adaptive Kinetic Response program. Her job, to simply be human, to demonstrate the illogical, the instinctive, the unpredictable. She accepted with a wry smile. Jax Miller, meanwhile, was already tinkering with a new project, a device that could project localized, chaotic grav fields, creating an oppos, many anomalies and oppos, for training purposes. He called it the, end quote, jitterbug, end quote. He had a feeling would be very popular. The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson from Ethelgard. It was a lesson about adaptability, about turning weaknesses into strengths, and about the sheer, unadulterated power of human ingenuity. And it all started with a ban, a few modified hoverboards, and some truly spectacular footage. The laughter had turned to respect, and the mockery had turned to a desperate desire to understand. Part 10. The Echoes of the Ban Years Past. The Grand Galactic Academy continued its mission, but it was forever changed. The, end quote, humanity's specific prescription on unsupervised grav plate manipulation, end quote, remained in the Academy's archives, a historical curiosity, but its context had been entirely rewritten. It was no longer a testament to human inadequacy, but a chilling reminder of their unique and potent capabilities. Anya Sharma became a renowned expert in and oppos, adaptive kinematics and oppos, her lectures on human instinct and controlled chaos becoming legendary across the galaxy. She often began her talks with a wry smile and, quote, they thought we were clumsy. They thought we couldn't and oppos, T-handle their fancy hoverboards, end quote. Then she would show the original footage of the atrium anomaly, and the audience, alien and human alike, would gasp, then chuckle, then fall silent in awe. Jax Miller's, end quote, jitterbug, end quote, devices became standard training equipment in specialized units across the galaxy, teaching other species to cope with unpredictable environments. He even developed a commercial version, marketed as, end quote, chaos simulators, end quote, which became surprisingly popular as extreme sports equipment among the more adventurous alien youth. The Varkosian Dominion, still smarting from their defeat at Ethelgard, had also taken note. Their intelligence reports now included a new, chilling section on, end quote, human unpredictability factors, end quote. They had learned that conventional warfare was insufficient against a species that could weaponize its own illogical nature. They had learned to fear the unexpected. The most profound impact, however, was on the perception of humanity itself. No longer dismissed as mere and oppos, primitives and oppos, or end oppos, clumsy organics and oppos, humans were now viewed with a new, cautious respect. They were the species that defied logic, that thrived in chaos, that turned their perceived flaws into terrifying strengths. They were the ones who, when told they couldn't and oppos, to do something, would find the most audacious, illogical, and spectacular way to prove everyone wrong. And sometimes, in the quiet halls of the Grand Galactic Academy, a young Xylosian student would glance at a human cadet walking past, and a faint, almost imperceptible shiver would run down their luminous tendrils. They would remember the footage, the wild grins, the impossible maneuvers. They would remember the laughter, and how quickly it had turned to awe. The ban on hoverboards was a joke no more. It was a legend, and the galaxy had learned, the hard way, that when humanity is told it can in oppos, T, it usually means they and oppos. Re about to show you exactly how they can, and make it look terrifyingly glorious. Slash prosody slash speak.